A notification was released by the Ministry of Consumer Affairs a few days back, which stated that if a consumer or a customer is not satisfied with the services given to them at a restaurant, they can certainly deny paying the service charges levied along with the bill.
Sometimes, some places, I don't know what the percentage could be. It could be sometimes 15%, 20%. It should not depend on the restaurant. It should depend on the customer. If you feel satisfied, then yes, it should be by the customer's choice.
It's only the consumer who should be deciding whether it has to be paid or not, because it's ultimately who we are paying the money from our pockets.
I feel it's a good decision that the responsibility has been given to the customer. And in today's day, the customer is the king, so customer has to choose whether he is satisfied with the service or no. And depending on that, the customer will pay.
I think it's fantastic. It certainly enables the tourist or the customer to have the right of say in the restaurant.
It is a very good decision. It is a good step that everybody should know this thing.
They are being unfair, like the hotel owners, they have their customers, the customers rely on them. So yeah, basically they are being unfair.
They should charge around 2 to 3%. That's how okay. That will also reduce the amount they are charging. Actually, hotels are charging more than the actual value.
I think it's unnecessary. If we don't like the service, we will not pay the service charge. If we like it, then of course we might even pay more than 10% if we really like the service.
We should pay for what we are eating, not for the services.
Unnecessarily, like the hotel association, they are putting extra money for that. And that is quite unjustified, I think, like that.
So that's the question we're asking this evening on the Urban Debate. Will you pay the service charge now that it is optional? Remember, the central government has issued a notice saying that restaurants can no longer mandatorily charge you a service charge. It's up to the customer to decide whether or not you want to pay that charge. It's also mandated that all restaurants very clearly declare to their customers that the service charge is optional or that they are going to put in a service charge in their bills, and then it's up to the customer to decide whether or not they want to pay that charge. Now, the central government has also called this service charge an unfair trade practice. I'm opening up our phone lines and I want to understand from you whether you believe that this is a good move and whether you will in fact open up your wallet and pay that service charge when you go to the restaurant the next time you're having dinner with your family. Joining me on the show this evening, Shazia Ilmi is a BJP leader. Tanveer Ahmed, National Spokesperson of the JDS, will join us in a little while. We'll also have Hrishikesh, Kannan, who's a radio host and a producer. But in the meantime, Aditya, representing the Citizen's Voice. Mihir Desai is the co-owner of Corum, the very popular bar stock exchange. He joins us in the studio. Romil Ratra is from Bellona Hospitality 212 and several other very, very popular restaurants. Antoine Lewis is a popular food critic and a journalist. I welcome all of you to this conversation. Romil, I'm going to start with you. Unfair trade practice. I know the Association of Restaurant Owners actually sat up and said, I don't understand. What do you mean unfair trade practice? We're not being unfair. But tell us, actually, for our viewers to understand what the service charge is, why you charge it, and where does that money go?
Okay, so I think there's a couple of things to start with. We charge a service charge, and we declare on our menus that we charge a service charge. It could range between 5 and 10%, not 20% or 15% like somebody said. But there's also government taxes on that. There's also service tax, there's VAT, there are 2 cesses, and that is what takes the amount of a bill up.
The service education charge, says, the Swachh Bharat says,
Krishi Kalyan as well.
Krishi Kalyan says, yes.
The service charge that we take is not just for the service you receive, it is something that is taken and distributed to every level of staff across the organization that build the experience that you come to a restaurant for. Okay. It goes to waiters, valets, bartenders, housekeepers, kitchen stewarding guys, the cooks, the purchase, the materials, everyone.
Forgive me for interrupting you, Romil. Now, you can say for sure this happens in all of your restaurants, but can you say for sure it happens in every restaurant, that the service charge is equally distributed among everyone from valet to the chef in the kitchen and the people who are washing the dishes?
I can pretty much say that for most, yes, you're right. For all our restaurants, we do it. And I'm sure from all the members of the Restaurant Association, all the people that we work with, our colleagues, they do it as well. In the event that somebody doesn't, I'm sure that money is put towards welfare of the staff. This is not something that we take as our revenue. It is never used as revenue.
Okay.
There's a clear-cut difference between tipping and service charge. And I think that's where the real gap comes in.
Okay, I can see Shazia Ilmi smiling right now. Shazia, do you disagree? Do you believe, I mean, is there an audited process? Do you want to take Romil for his word that all of the service charge that's collected actually finds its way into the right hands?
Well, the preceding speaker can speak for himself, and I'm sure he follows the good practices that he claims he does. But I don't think this is true of for all. Also, I've happened to there are two things that I want to say. I have personally spoken to waiters who to people who service, and they tell us that they don't get even half of what they claim to be given, and it's a very arbitrary process. And second is the choice that I have as a consumer. I have been to restaurants which have charged me and my family and friends up till 15% of service charge. And sometimes the service has been exemplary, sometimes it has been terrible. But to be forced, and I remember once I really complained and I said, I don't feel like giving this because I'm so harassed sitting here and I'm charging so much more for having waited for so long with a waiter who got the order all wrong. So, and all over the world, like we all travel, and you see the USA, you tip generously, and it's a huge amount, and most of the countries, in fact. But to have a service charge which is inbuilt, which is mandatory, which goes up from 5% to 20%, with us not really knowing as to what is going on, and the waiters and the cooks. What is a way to know whether this is actually equally distributed or
so 2 points. Let me allow Romil to rebuttal here. Point number one, you're saying that
welfare, right, and for the interest of.
Right. Let me allow Romil to come back. Romil, Shazia brought in a very interesting point. People travel overseas and they tip generously. Do you agree with the fact that first of all you can't speak for all restaurants and say the money reaches the right hand? And do you believe? She brought up a very good point. What happens if I'm unhappy? If the waiter's kept me waiting? If he's gotten my order wrong? If the food is cold? Why do I still have to pay a service charge?
So here's the thing. I'm going to address these things one at a time.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that Shazia brought up right now is the simple fact that if you're traveling abroad, and she gave the US as an example, in the US, a service charge for up to 6 people, 15% is mandatory. If you're a group of over 6, 18% is mandatory. You will pay it. If you choose to tip or not is a separate issue. And it is the same very much here. We charge between 5 and 10%.
Not in all restaurants. No, it's not.
I'm not talking about mid-market quick service restaurants, but in general, if you go to a good restaurant, that is what you will pay. And the hypocrisy is also the fact that the same guest who goes abroad and sits in a restaurant in New York will quietly pay that 15%, but here they will debate it. And we're getting into this debate now because of that. Here, a guest who has a 20,000 rupee bill will leave 500 rupees if there's no service charge.
There is no mandatory. We're talking about some very upscale restaurants. We're talking about...
Right, okay, so let me bring in other voices in the debate. I want to bring in Antoine Lewis, and I also want to bring in, right now, Mihir Desai. Antoine and Mihir, here's the question, right? Whether we're talking about, upper, crest restaurants, we're talking about mid-range restaurants, whoever we're talking about, shouldn't it finally be up to the customer to decide whether or not I want to part with this tip/service charge? And if you're actually making me pay for the service, the entire service of valet to dishwashing, that should be worked in as part of the menu costs.
See, I totally agree that it's a decision of a customer because customer is a king. But it has to be with all the sectors like aviation sector, your Ubers, Olas, your roadways, everywhere. I mean, everyone is charging you a convenience charge. So it is just a term which is like a service charge.
Okay.
So where is that going? I mean, nobody is protesting that. The government is not having a look. They are charging you an airport tax if your flights are delayed. Do you get the airport tax back? No, you don't get. So I mean, as Ms. Ilmi said that, because you don't like the service.
So you believe the government is unfairly targeting restaurants?
The government is trying to take brownie points out of this. It's in any ways.
What sort of brownie
from
points?
Tomorrow, the menu price will go up. The citizen or people are not going to get benefited from anyways. It's just the whole story is on creating marketing.
Explain to me, one second, maybe explain to me what you mean by brownie points. What sort of
brownie points is like marketing
about
something that they're doing this for people, but it's nowhere helping people, I'm sure. Because from tomorrow onwards, if this goes further and we don't get stay in the court, so surely we'll hike our prices.
Okay, Aditya, we'll come to you, but I want to ask
because some mention has been made about brownie points.
Right.
Now the Consumer Forum
Go ahead.
So Consumer Forum has, and there are many consumers who have protested. There have been many complaints. And so all the advisory says that it should not be mandatory, it should be voluntary. Surely the consumer should have a right to say no if the service is bad. What is wrong with that?
No,
what is there about brownie points?
There is nothing wrong.
And the concerned department
like the government is collecting road tax and the roads are bad.
Points.
So where is the public going that time?
It is responding to customers' needs, which is every government.
No, if the roads are bad and you're collecting a
But these are unconnected. If consumers were to have a PIL against that and let the government respond, they're unconnected points, sir.
No, I'm just talking about service charge versus a charge which is an extra, which is like a service.
You have a PIL. No, so that's what I'm saying. But right now we're talking about the service charge in restaurants.
Yeah, so service charge, same court, Patiala court has given a stay.
Let that also happen if the roads are not good. So make a case for it.
So we are going to the court.
Anyway, I want to bring in Aditya here. Aditya represents the citizens. And it's a very interesting argument, Aditya. First of all, I want to understand from you if you will pay a service charge now that it's optional. And will you pay taxes if we shouldn't be saying if the roads are full of holes, because they are. Do you think that argument holds for you as a customer of both the BMC and a restaurant?
Well, these two are very different topics altogether. Now, what we are discussing about the service charges that being levied onto a customer or consumer when he goes to a restaurant, which is ranging in between 5% to 20%. So, tomorrow if I walk into a good restaurant and if I have a chicken biryani, which will cost me 250 rupees, and I land up paying 25% of the taxes onto it, among which 5 to 10% is the service charges. Now, I don't understand.
But technically, service charge is not part of the taxes at all.
No, it is not as a cumulative number. It is a 25% of that particular charges that I'm paying over and above what I order for. So when you say service charge, if you really want to distribute it to your waiters and the dishwashers and so on and so forth, why don't you take it as a tip? Why do you take it as a service charge? I don't understand, because you come from a service and the hospitality industry. Definitely 250 rupees of a chicken biryani will consist a cost of a profit or whatever you say, or service charges on everything. It will definitely not come without that. Right. It is definitely comes as an extra component to a cost.
You worked in the cost of your entire staff, is what you're saying, in the price of the food. Exactly. I also want to bring in Antoine, because Antoine has seen both sides of this business. He's been studying it very closely. Antoine, where do you stand as far as service charge is concerned?
So one is, from this conversation, it seems like we can't really separate the idea of tipping from the service charge, and we really need to make that distinction. And the word service, of course, is becoming really complicated in this. So tipping is a gratuity that is given to the waiter simply for getting your order right and making a great experience for you. But there are a number of people who put that restaurant experience together for you, and like Romil said, and like other people have said, you've got the valet, you've got people working in the kitchen, you've got your runners, you've got people who are clearing the table for you. The fact of the matter is that labor costs have gone up tremendously. Not everything can be worked into the menu price.
I disagree. I completely disagree on this, because when you charge a plate, when you charge something to a customer, definitely it comes with that particular cost which is involved as a material and the labor. Then service is something very different. When I want to pay a service,
that's the whole
service charge. When I want to pay a service charge, definitely I will look into it whether I like the service or not.
Let me just rephrase this question for Romil and for Mihir. Romil, if the cost of your staff, if the cost of salaries of your staff went up by 15% on a particular year, wouldn't you work that into the prices of your menu?
It doesn't matter, because as it is, if the rates are going up, but obvious the menus prices would go up. It's very simple. I don't know why the whole issue is made out of this.
From a cost point of view, it's not just...
Romil, go ahead.
Okay, from a cost point of view, every business, whether it's a restaurant, it's a manufacturing business, it's the airlines, costs go up every single year.
Right.
Correctly said.
A guy standing there buying a ticket at an airport to fly from Mumbai to Delhi, he's told this is the price. There's the base fare. And then there's a bunch of charges that nobody knows what they mean. One of them says convenience fee. I've come to you. So what you're telling me is that you selling me a ticket is a convenience to me. Nobody's questioning that. But you're questioning a service charge, which you can physically experience something in front of you. It is not possible that the waiter serving you or the steward serving you has conjured up your food magically, right?
Okay.
There is a bunch of people involved in that experience.
Okay.
And yes, of course, when we build a business model for a restaurant and we price food, one thing is to say that you've built everything in. Every market is different. Rentals are the highest they've ever been. We're not getting breaks on rentals. Nobody is questioning the fact that the government is adding close to 19.5%. And they have no clue where the money is going.
The service
they have no clue.
So what you both are fundamentally saying is if you're complaining about the service charge, you should be complaining about a lot of other things also.
Even the service tax should be
service tax.
Let's understand something.
Customer.
If I change the price of a dish on my menu and I did not have service charge, or I included it in the price.
Yes.
So I'm selling something, as he said, for 250 rupees. You don't want to pay 25 rupees of service charge. But I will leave a tip. Fine. One sec. On that, I want to then, from what consumers seem to be saying, change the price of your dish. It's okay. So I'll charge 275. Right. On the 275, now you're paying 12.5% VAT.
No, but
you're paying 4.5% or 5.12 or whatever it comes to nowadays of service tax because they charge on 40% of the value.
Okay.
Then you're paying the cesses. You're okay with that.
Okay.
But what you're taking away is from the level of staff that are working there, not one guy, but 30 or 40 or 50 people who craft your experience, and you're leaving 25 rupees for the guy on a bill of 250 bucks, and you're grudging that. I mean, come on. I find that really hard to believe.
Actually, it's a fat cat restaurateurs. Actually, it's the other way around. It is a...
And that doesn't mean that our salaries are not up to par, by the way.
She just called you a fat cat restaurateur.
I think it's the other way around. I think it's the fat cat restaurateurs who's squeezing the waiters.
I'm sorry, I disagree with that.
No, I have to say this. I have to say this because I know something. They're squeezing the waiters. They're squeezing the waiters. No, I'm not. No, it's not personal.
I'm telling you what the restaurateurs are doing.
The owners who are squeezing the whether it's a valet. You can dispute that. I can dispute what you're saying too. Squeezing the chefs, squeezing the waiters.
No, but what do you mean by
extra
squeezing?
charge? Not even paying them what is deserved.
Are you trying to say we pay under what the labor laws say? I'm sorry, I disagree. I completely disagree with that concept. You say, but because we're not sure, and I know so many restaurants, and I know of people who staffers. Are you sure about what the government does with the taxes it collects?
They are promised.
I mean, come on.
She represents the BJP, so
would,
one hopes that she is. Okay, let me bring in.
I'm not sure. You can go to the Consumer Affairs Tribunal. I want to come to that. I want to answer you, sir. Don't get so belligerent. So if you're unhappy with that, I totally agree. Last year, all the private airlines and I think even the government airlines, they spiked up the fares, and it was something of an oligarchy that was happening. It was unfair trade practice, and there was a government order that said the prices cannot exceed a certain amount. So consumers have to go and complain, whether it's against the government or against private restaurants. It has to be. It cannot be an unfair practice. It has to be transparent.
All right.
And it's all. We also
Shazia Ilmi still calling it an unfair trade practice. Let me bring in a couple more voices, Shazia. Let me bring in Tanveer Ahmed and Rishi Kannan, who joins us.
There's a clarification. One clarification.
Okay, go ahead.
No, one small clarification. It's the last thing I want to say. Last, just a small point. Also, it's voluntary. If some restaurants still want to charge it, and if people are happy paying it, they will go there. So what is the problem?
So this is what we are saying.
It is not like it's come as a diktat. It has come as an advisory.
So, but if anybody or the customer who's already told in advance that this is the price.
I have declared to you that this is my price on the menu. I charge A, B, C, D government taxes, and I charge a service charge. I am declaring it to you. You're absolutely right. It is the consumer's choice, but it is not for the consumer to decide after the moment you order from that menu. In effect, that is a contract. You have read the menu, you have seen the price, I have disclosed every single bit of data that I possibly can to you. I am not lying.
So even if you
I am not telling you that I am not going to charge you service charge and then force you to pay it.
You have to pay it.
So you have
I'm sorry.
Tomorrow we can term it as a convenience charge and add.
No, but the promise is that the food will be, the service will be exemplary.
Let me bring in Tanveer Ahmed and
Rishi
Kannan.
But the promise is the service charge will be justified.
Right. Let me bring in Tanveer Ahmed and Rishi Kannan. Tanveer Ahmed and Rishi, same question to the two of you. They seems to have, from this one order, created a lot of confusion. I still believe that there are a lot of customers who are still confused between what the service charge and what the service tax is. And people are now confused between, yes, what is tip and what is service charge, and whether it's optional or not. Do I decide before I have my meal, after I have my meal? Tanveer Ahmed, where do you stand on service charge?
First and foremost, I lived in UK and US for a pretty long period. People who travel to those countries from India really don't even question whether it is 18% or 6%. They just pay the service charges there and they come out. But in India, where we are, all the laborers are underpaid. The person, the chauffeur is underpaid. The person who is washing dishes are underpaid. If they are making some money out of service charges, I think according to Section 2, Subsection A, Clause B of offer and acceptance,
but are they?
It is left to the customer whether he likes it to go or don't go. I think I am going to stand with the hoteliers here, saying that if at all they are telling you upfront, saying that this is the charges we are charging, it is up to you to come or not to come. But however, saying this, I would say that because of the demonetization effect and all that, wherein a customer has taken a huge beating, if we could bring it down to 2% to 10%, that would be fantastic. But however, creeping on these charges, saying that we are not going to pay, who are you to charge? I think this is not the way to question the poor hoteliers, because already
hoteliers is not mandatory.
No, I'm sorry. That's a misconception.
But
you have no idea how difficult it is to do the business that we do.
What it matters is, see, service charges. No citizen is denying to pay the service charge. If you must have noticed, people land up paying even 500 rupees, even 100 rupees if they really like the service. The question is, when you give it on the check or a bill that you have to pay these taxes goes to government. You really cannot debate with that. Come on, I mean, how can you?
But
when it comes to service charges, service charges cannot be a compulsion. If at all, I like the service.
So why service tax?
Service tax, it's a government. If you have so much of problem, why don't you
with
go
the
up to the government
That's okay.
and
Let me bring in Rishi. I just want to bring in that voice. Rishi, do you believe...
we live in a sovereign nation, the direct taxes and indirect taxes is a state government, is a central government.
Agree. So
that's
when you are leveraging your customers or your people,
right.
So that time it should be valued at same. Why only service charge and why not service tax?
Let me bring in Rishi. Rishi, where do you stand on service charge? Do you believe that restaurants should be allowed to charge a service charge over and above the menu costs, provided they tell you up front that this is what we're going to charge?
Faye, I'm with the restaurateurs on this one. It's really simple. When you decide to go out for a meal to a restaurant or an eating establishment, you go for the experience, not just the food. I mean, one could argue saying that food gives you sustenance, but then you could eat that food at home or you could order in, whatever it is. You go there for the experience. And in that aspect, like the gentleman said, there is an unimplied contract between yourself and the experience that you choose to take. And the information has been divulged to you. Now, I'm classic middle class. I'm not Navorish. I'm not upper middle class. My father was a salaried employee. I'm a salaried employee. Even before the service charge thing came in, I would look at a bill, I would calculate 10% mentally or on my phone and just pay that up. And right now we're in a situation whereby we look at a bill and the service charge is mentioned. And I go ahead and do it. And somebody else made a very valid point saying, I personally, in Europe, in the West, I've been abused. People have muttered under their breath when I've gone away, not leaving a tip, simply because I didn't have the change or I didn't have the wherewithal or understand the language to ask them for change. And here in India, we're so genteel about it. We're proper about it. And why are we making such a big issue out of paying a service charge? I mean, if you're going to go in for an experience, then you have to take that into consideration.
Right. Romil, I come to you. The question of tipping versus service charge. Now, are Indians good tippers in comparison to the rest of the world? And can tips be replaced with service charge? So my question to you is actually very flat out. If there is a service charge on my bill, then can I avoid leaving the tip altogether?
Absolutely. So there's two things. In all our restaurants that have service charges, there is negligible tipping. Because today every single consumer has read that there is a service charge. In fact, most people will ask, if they're not sure, do you guys have a service charge? And if you say yes, they do not leave a tip. Number two, most importantly, look at the current scenario. Today, why has the government taken this step of demonetization? To get rid of black money. Think about what we're doing when we charge a service charge. I collect the money, I pay tax on it, I give it to my staff in white money as part of their paycheck. If you're going to leave a 500 rupee note as tip because you have the discretion to choose to or not to choose to, there is no accounting for that money. Who is accounting for it? So you may be the best tippers in the world. And let's assume that we are.
No, but
we leave a lot of money and it's more than 10% because everybody's so generous. But there is no accounting for it.
Can I say something here? I would like to contradict this.
No, that's a very good point he's making, Shazia, which is basically, it goes with demonetization
going on. I did not have enough cash. No, I want to answer.
Okay,
yes,
go ahead.
That's the point I'm making. If you let me come
and you're right, because today most people don't have enough of cash, so they're not leaving tips in any case.
And there was my entire family. And what one I did, yes sir. So I didn't have cash, but I actually gave a tip through my debit card. My sister did that because through the card, and we said this money is for that, and you take care of that, and we let the person know.
Okay,
because I did not have cash.
And Antoine, how many people do that? How many people, Mihir, in your experience, swipe their card?
Very few. But the fact is,
I think only
so all I'm saying.
Mihir, how often
there are few people who do this, but actually
gave a tip through that. So it's not. I'm saying it's not
people
mutually
are scared of
exclusive
frauds,
of each other.
this, that, so they don't want to actually give anything over and above. If you know how this works, the tip things work. Is you have to write it on a chit or whatever, and then after the settlement, the tip is settled separately.
Yeah, so people want to circulate. They want to make sure you can't add another zero later or do it.
Yeah.
I think
so they are not comfortable. So people don't
work the service charge into the bill component itself. Yes. I mean, you then at one hand that you're paying everything, but I think a couple of people have raised the issues that what happens if over the service charge you leave a tip? Should the restaurateurs be returning that? I really don't know how often that happens, and what is the policy that restaurateurs have taken about it, whether it's really something worth discussing.
That's an excellent question, actually. Mihir, I mean, I've left a cash tip sometimes after paying a service charge because I know the waiter. And you just don't, I mean, out of politeness, you don't want to leave the table. So is there a policy that restaurateurs should make available at this point?
Yeah, so it's a tip box. So all the money which is kept behind as a tip goes in a tip box. And it's divided or depends on how the restaurateur wants it. It's an individual tipping or it's amongst all. So
the staff decide. We don't play a role in that policy. If you leave a tip,
there is the manager who decides.
Right. Let me take Pooja. Pooja is on the phone line from Mumbai. She wants to join the conversation. Pooja, you're on the show. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm. I was just saying this. Are you trying to say that the hospitality industry is not paying their staff their salary? And when we pay the bill, doesn't it include the profits? And after paying the service charge, sometimes we also tip them.
Pooja, I would like to just tell you that if we increase the menu price, as it is coming, I mean, it's no change for a common man. Nothing is changing for a common man. From tomorrow onwards, if this is stopped, but obviously the menu prices are going up. How are you?
Wouldn't you rather than be honest about it and upfront?
Party benefiting or not benefiting with this?
Plus the taxation will go up as well on the new amount.
All right, let's ask Pooja, and then I also want to ask Aditya, who is a citizen here. Right, Pooja, if tomorrow the restaurateurs were to just increase the prices on the menu, and then you would have to pay service tax, and then cess, and then Krishi Kalyan, and then Swachh Bharat on it. Are you okay with that as opposed to paying a service charge?
And leave a tip, by the way, if you're a good customer and you got good service.
0.5%.
Pooja?
So you on a 250 rupee biryani, you give someone 12 rupees 50 paisa.
You'd be okay with that. Pooja, you'd be okay with that?
No, I'll pay them. I mean, if I know the waiter and if he's doing it, I'll pay generously.
Okay, you'll be generous.
No, but she didn't answer the menu part. The price.
So would you be okay with all restaurateurs increasing their menus to compensate for the lack of service charge? Pooja?
Yeah, let them pay. I mean, we are ready to pay.
You're ready to pay. All right, Aditya, same question.
Well, what I feel is service charge and tip is nothing but the same, because when you design a 250 rupees of chicken biryani, when you hire that cook, that waiter, that maybe bartender, maybe anyone else, that 250 rupees is inclusive of everything. It cannot be possible that you just design the 250 rupees, leaving the service charges behind and waiting for the customer to pay later on.
So tomorrow,
I mean, that's the way you're.
This is an extra. Let's actually break this up. What is the difference between the service charge and the tip? And Romil?
So there's two things. A tip or a gratuity is up to you and at your discretion. You may choose to leave something, you may choose to leave nothing. That is out of the goodness of your heart. You know the waiter, you're feeling generous, it's somebody's birthday, your call completely. There is no mandate to leave a tip. However, we do mandate a service charge
on the basis of what?
On the basis of the fact that, number one, first of all, it is not just the waiter. Tips, if you leave, go to a waiter.
Correct.
But there are other people who create that experience for you.
But when you talk about service charge on the basis of what? You have hired that waiter, number of waiters, maybe 10 waiters.
Yes, we have.
Let me argue on the other side. Let me argue on the other side. Why can't the tip box?
For the betterment and the welfare of
why can't the tip box be distributed among everybody who's part of the
experience? That's what I'm saying. When you're into a service in the hospitality industry, isn't it a part of your job and your profession wherein you and the business wherein you have hired a customer?
So the same logic when you buy a ticket at an airline counter, it is not your job to sell me a ticket. Why am I paying a convenience fee?
It is not extra welfare in any means. I'm sorry. No, I completely disagree.
Gentlemen, one second. If we talk over each other, the audience can't understand us. Antoine, so here's my question, right? If there is a tip box and all the tips go into that box, figuratively speaking, considering some of them are card swipes, can't that amount of money be then distributed among the entire people, the entire staff that's in charge, that's contributing to the experience?
Would love to do so because they...
Antoine, first of all, I'll come back to Romil.
That is what I think the issue that everyone is kind of
by the private
arguing is that are we in some way subsidizing the costs, the labor costs that you as a restaurateur should be paying? I think that the issue is that the restaurateurs have not been able to answer this question adequately. And that's why people feel cheated, that they feel that, well, you aren't paying your employees correctly, you aren't paying them the full wages, you are forcing me to do that. Now, I haven't heard a convincing enough argument from people to say that, no, you aren't actually, that there is a certain cost.
But there will always be a grey area in this because you need to check our balance sheets for that.
Why should there be a grey area in this at all?
No, because you need to check our balance sheets for that. How would this be on upfront that, if my waiter is getting paid or not and what is he getting paid? I mean, it's about an individual company. It's not, if people doubt it, you can always pull out a balance sheet from ROC.
No, see, I'll tell you what else. There are some very, very strong associations of the restaurateurs in the country.
And let me remind everybody, till 4-5 years back, there used to be no...
Why can't the Restaurateurs Association self-regulate and say...
There was always tipping.
We will cap it at 10% or 12% or whatever it is. It's as of now a very wide range of anywhere between 5 and 20%.
Yes, it is ranging between 5 to 20% about this.
No, Romil, that's not entirely true. I mean,
who charges more than 10% service charge?
There are people who charge 5% and there are people who charge more than 10%. It's a big country.
Exactly.
There will be variations.
They are. Please.
But there are.
So, which world are you living in?
What I feel is
every restaurant in South Delhi charges more than 14 to 20% of service.
That is a misconception. What a customer sees is the total of...
What I understand then what you're saying is it's at the customer's choice whether he wants to visit that restaurant or not.
All right. So let's bottle this down. Let's bring this down. What the restaurateurs are saying fundamentally is that we will tell you what we're charging. Now it's up to you. If you don't want to pay that service charge, don't come to my restaurant. Mihir, is that what you're saying?
That's true.
Don't come to my restaurant. Rishi, I'll bring in Rishi here back again. Rishi's been very quiet. Rishi, so here's the argument. Fundamentally, I'll tell you up front, this is the service charge I'm going to charge you because I want to be able to reward my staff.
If you're booking your air tickets, Indigo is charging you Bombay, Delhi 5,000, Jet is charging you 7,000, Vitara may charge you 10,000. What would you do? It's your choice to book 10,000, 5,000 or 7,000. It's your choice to make which airways you want to choose.
Rishi?
Yeah, I agree with what he's saying. If I make the choice to go out and sample that food experience, and if I'm told very categorically at my point of entry, or even when I make a phone call, I'm sure that the information is available to me when I book prior, and if I'm told that this is what I'm expected to pay as service charge, I'm happy to pay it. Else, if I'm not happy to pay it, I can only speak for myself, then I should be in a position to tell myself that fine, I don't want to go to this place.
Antoine, here's my question to you. When someone goes into a restaurant, it's fair to say when you're walking in...
You know, I have always paid...
Right. Shazia, I'll come to you. When you walk in and the person at the door says, okay, this is how much we charge as a service charge. But how often does it happen that someone gets to the end of the meal? Right.
There are times when I have not wanted to pay it. Do I have the choice?
Do you have the choice? I was asking the same question, Antoine. Sometimes I might agree when I walk into the restaurant that I want to pay.
If you don't like the butter chicken, that doesn't mean you don't pay for a butter chicken.
When you enter a restaurant and it's mentioned clearly on the menu, at every point on the menu, that there is a service charge, then there is no way for you to say that I didn't know there was a service charge.
I'm not saying I didn't know. What if at the end of the meal, the customer is not happy?
My question is still unanswered. So if a customer is exceedingly happy, can I make it 20%?
Even there is a service charge.
No. So that's the thing. Well,
all the ordinances...
All right, Antoine first and then Shazia.
If you're not happy, I think that most restaurateurs will be quite happy to remove that service charge if they feel that you have a genuine complaint with the service. I can't imagine any restaurant saying no, that you've got the service charge.
Incidentally, when you said most restaurateurs, you had the one sitting next to you shaking his head.
No, I was shaking my head to say not just remove the service charge, but we go out of our way to make sure that the customer will be happy. We will, in most cases, replace food if people don't like it.
That's not the fact.
We will send them something. We will make sure that everything is better. I'm sorry.
That's not the fact.
You're going to the wrong place of the time.
So then you're not going to very good restaurants. Shazia Ilmi, you wanted to come in, and my question is that if you walk into a restaurant and they tell you 10% service charge and you've had an unpleasant experience, then what?
So if you've had a great experience, then you'd be willing to pay 20%.
Yeah, so, you've been
and
going
to... Tell me who's going to do that.
Yeah, sometimes you might want to give more than that. Yeah, sometimes the service is exemplary. Sometimes somebody's taken very good care of you. Sometimes they've remembered something, and sometimes you're feeling generous. You want to give more than 10%.
And that's what tipping is
for. Or what is stipulated. But sometimes it's actually bad. So if 2% out of 98... but tipping is not an option because it's mandatory so far, which is exactly what the ministry is saying.
No, they're two different things. Service charge and tips are different.
Let it be voluntary.
Service charges and tips are different. You're free to leave. If you want to, the service charge is something that we would charge as mandatory on our, and we disclose it. We're not saying that you have to leave.
Okay, I would like to give you one more example.
I'd like to kind of actually...
The government...
saying something.
Wait. I'd like to give you one more example on this. The BMC charges you property tax. It takes care of all the maintenance and everything. Why is government charging us?
Mihir, let her finish what she's saying and then I'll come straight to you.
Government might be doing a lot of things. So you also want to do the same? So you're like BMC. You're saying BMC is looting you, so you will loot the consumers. That's your logic.
I'm sorry, that's not correct. Nobody is looting any customer. We provide a service.
Nobody is looting any customer. I'm giving an example that if you're paying property tax, the maintenance and everything is part of the...
That's the logic you were giving.
The property tax, why is government charging you Swachh Bharat tax?
That's the logic you were giving. You're trying to be very clever.
No, what I'm asking you is
I completely agree.
Small answer. When you pay property tax...
I'm going to answer this question. I'm going to answer this question as a citizen. Mihir, I think it's completely valid to demand service for any money that you part with, and we are tax-paying citizens, which makes us consumers and customers of the BMC, of the state government and the central government, and we have to demand service for the kind of money we part with, and we part with a lot of money. Those of us who are salaried part with nearly 40% of everything we make every year. We have to actively demand for better service from all agencies of the government. Now, coming back to service charge, it does sound from this entire argument, I'm going to go to Tanveer Ahmed and I'll come back to Mihir after he's spoken, that it seems like restaurateurs feel that Indians are bad tippers. So here's the minimum tip I must make from you in order to be able to compensate all of my guys in the back of my restaurant. And then post that. If you want to be a generous tipper, please go ahead and give us more. But because Indians are bad tippers, there needs to be a sort of basic slab that you have to set down. Tanveer Ahmed, this is what it's sounding like to me. What does it sound like to you?
I would really like to agree on one part that yes, Indians are very bad tippers. Very, very bad tippers. This is based on my experience living in Europe for a pretty long period. But however, one basic point, I think the gentleman called Mihir who bought it, that this giving service charge is like white and black. You are giving in white. And also giving service charge, it is not going only to the waiter, it is going to everybody. And second thing, I think the current government needs to really understand that the service charge is not charged in all the restaurants. It is charged on the restaurant which has, where you go for experience. It is not charged at where the idli is 15 rupees and the biryani is 60 rupees. This is charged in the place where a rich can afford, a rich can go. So let there be a charges.
Let there be charges. In fact, Vijay Kumar is on the phone line from Hyderabad. Vijay Singh, I'm sorry, is on the phone line from Hyderabad. Vijay, go ahead.
Good evening. Well, I've been a hotelier for 40 years and I also have a restaurant of my own. And it's a very interesting debate, and I just wanted to tell you that there is the quality of service that we provide and where we're charging this service charge are really restaurants and hotels which are giving you great experiences. They are, as you rightly mentioned, they're not small restaurants serving you typically roadside food. And so there is a great experience involved. And this service charge, as rightly mentioned by another hotelier, is that it saves you on taxes on tax. So you don't pay further taxes on this, and it is shared by all other staff, which means normally people who don't get tips, like a doorman or a utility worker and so on and so forth. And the big discussion that's going on is that would you return that? I'm sure we will. Hoteliers in India and restaurateurs in India are known for high quality service. Forget about service charge. If you don't like our food, we will return back the entire bill. So what is the major concern about will we return that service charge? But it should not be something that you start an old deal with. We are giving you a price. We could have priced this service charge in your menu, but we are not doing that. We are trying to keep it separate so that we know that this is the money which will be shared by the staff. And let me tell you, all of us are paying the basic, the salary that has to be paid to staff. So nobody is underpaying these people. I just want to share this with you, and if you have any question, I'll be happy to answer.
All right, Vijay, thank you. Thank you for calling in. Rishi, you wanted to comment on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to talk, just expand a little bit on this Indian mentality thing. Now, I've seen men who are mice at home in front of their wives and their mothers and their mother-in-laws, but they will go to a restaurant or a hotel and misbehave. And the common consensus is that the service industry is supposed to serve with paying obeisance to the person who's come there to enjoy the services. And, it's all passé because they have to be prepared for this. This is what they're taught in the Hotel Management Institute or training school. So you bow your head and you serve. And from that mentality, I'm saying again, there are exceptions to the rule, comes the fact that there is a set of people who will walk into a restaurant and say that, they bloody well serve me. Because as it is, I'm paying a markup on these dishes, or what is perceived as a markup. So why should I pay a service charge? I think that in itself is a flaw in the average Indian mentality, and which is why lots of times when the restaurant associations or the hotel associations act tough, people turn around and say, oh, but they're from the service industry. Maybe they should, just be a little submissive and a little docile. So I think that's something we need to look inward and ask ourselves.
Right. Antoine, do you agree that Indians are bad tippers and there's a bad mentality when we deal with the services industry?
I don't think it really matters whether we are bad tippers or we're good tippers. Every culture tips differently. We're not used to tipping. Historically, it's not really it's something that was introduced. So I don't think making these comparisons and saying that, are you are Indians good tippers? Japan doesn't have tips, for instance. In Japan, if you tip the waiters, it's considered an insult. I've been to Europe, I've been to Italy, and I've been to several restaurants where they don't expect a tip. Does that make the Italians bad tippers? Perhaps, perhaps not. It's not really an issue. I just want to extend this argument about, that we've been talking about why we okay with not okay with paying a service charge at restaurant, but we're paying taxes to the government, etc. We are provided with services on a daily basis at a number of places, and that's built into the product in a lot of ways. Let's take the example of a department store at a mall. The person there is providing you a service as well. Should you then be paying a service charge on that as well? Should you be paying a service charge on every service that is provided to you? I think restaurateurs have not made the distinction again between why the service charge in a restaurant is more applicable than any other service that you receive.
Because in a store at a mall, you go and buy a product that is probably made in a factory and it's on a shelf. There aren't 50 people standing there at your beck and call doing that for you then. Nobody is parking your car for you. Nobody is cleaning the mall toilet. That storekeeper is not cleaning the mall toilet. The mall is cleaning it.
That's the mall is cleaning it. All of these people.
Stewards and stewardesses do that. Air hostesses do that in airports.
There would be three people
So
in the mall store.
service tax
But the airline charges you a convenience fee,
That's
which you're
what we're
willing to
trying
pay.
The people who get your luggage.
All right, but
I pay them separately.
Let's
You pay them separately.
let's bring
No,
this
you
down to
don't.
actually one simple
The-
question
the
between
airlines
Mihir,
also say to put our air hostesses, we need a
Romil
specific-
and Shazia. Simple question.
Our pilots are not
Was the
getting enough, so
government
we should
right
get enough service charge for them.
in issuing an order that said that service charge is entirely optional? Mihir?
See, it is optional, no problem, but all the sectors should be treated as same. Why the aviation sector is allowed, why the Olas and the Ubers are allowed. A lot of online apps and companies are allowed. So why different rules for different
So what do you think? What do you think the government's motivation was behind this notice?
I don't know. No idea.
No idea. But you think it was completely wrong?
I think it didn't make sense because end of the day, if you hike your price, so they did it for the people, but people are nowhere benefiting.
Roman?
Yes, they are. I don't think it's right at all. It's completely unjustified and there is no justification because every person has a different perception of quality. So you're absolutely right. Somebody said that if you don't want to eat in a particular restaurant, I think Rishi mentioned the fact that, and he agreed with me, that a menu is an implied contract and what I've written on it is what I am agreeing to do. And I'm agreeing to deliver something to you. If you have a bad flight, are you going to get a refund? If you say my butter chicken is not good, any restaurateur will say, I'm so sorry, let me change that for you. If your flight is delayed, what does the airline do? Nothing. You get an announcement that says, oh, I'm so sorry, there's air traffic and I can't do anything for you. So we're a soft target. We currently pay, let me tell you, we employ 5.8 million people in this country.
Right.
And most of them are the guys who benefit off this service charge. And that is one of the key reasons that we're strongly against this. This is not a good move at all. None of us pay below minimum wage. Forget minimum wage.
Romil, why do you believe you're
pay
a soft target? Why do you believe that the hospitality industry is a soft target here?
We are, because the Bhagavad Gita says, Atiti Devo Bhava. The guest is God. They told us that. And we believe our guests are God. But so do our guests. They too like to believe they're
so
God.
When you're saying you're a soft target, are you a soft target to your guests or are you a soft target to the government
For anyone
at this
and everyone. We have the toughest licensing rules in the world. It is, the process is unreal. The charges are unreal. Licenses are not transferable. Real estate rates are the highest.
1964 rules, which
I
we
mean,
still
come on.
comply on.
The rules are archaic. You can get a single window clearance anywhere in Europe for a restaurant. You need one health certification and you need an NOC from the building that you're in. Here I need 30 plus licenses to open a restaurant. Yet consumers will believe that they make a lot of money. And the biggest issue is the pure concept of dignity of labor, much like Rishi brought up a little while ago. You come to a restaurant and you equate that service staff with your office boy or your house help. He is much more qualified than that.
Right.
He is doing a lot more for you.
All right, let's get responses. Aditya first and then Shazia. Aditya, as a customer, do you believe the government has done the right thing?
Yes, because it has they have thrown some light on this fact that service charges are optional and only if you like the service, you like the food, then only you should be paying it. Otherwise, I don't understand. If I don't like the food, I really cannot judge whether the food is good or not.
It's not about the food, it's about the service.
Food and service, both of them. In the end, service also, when you talk about service, how many of your restaurants, or maybe when I talk about different restaurants, it's not the same case with everybody, but everybody is charging 20% or 15% service charge. So I'm not really against all the hoteliers, all the brand names, all the chains. No. There are some of them who are taking an added advantage of it, which is not required. And that's the reason government or DCA has thrown light on it, that it's an optional. And every hotelier, if I say brands like Calcutta, maybe mainland China, they have agreed. They've said that we are okay with it. We have to abide with the rule. No, it is
part of our group.
Correct. I mean, they have made it very clear.
Very much standing with us.
They have made it very clear it is optional and we are okay with it.
No.
Yes.
they have.
But
I think this ruling is really kind of confusing.
Confusing, yes, it's confusing more than anything else.
Either said yes, I mean it's fine, and let them run with it, or just say no, it's illegal and just remove it. I think there's just confusion in everyone's minds. There's confusion in the restaurateurs. There's confusion amongst
I'm assuming there'll be
consumers.
confusion when someone comes up with a bill and the customer turns around and says, "I'm not paying this right now because I was not happy." Then what do you do?
And that impacts the entire experience.
Right. I want to bring in Shazia now. A couple of things to argue here, Shazia. First of all, shouldn't all industries then be treated the same? Shouldn't there be a uniformity across the treatment of service charges or other charges across all industry? That was the first thing that came up. My second question to you is, this could have been done in a clearer manner. The government could have said, let's take it off altogether, or could have said, let's cap it at 10% or 12% or 15% as a maximum. The restaurateurs are free to charge less than that, but they can't charge more, which would have been a more fair thing to do. But this just causes a lot of confusion. This is just, I mean, it really hasn't helped anyone.
No. Well, because you have a hoteliers union on your panel, and obviously their voice is louder because there are more numbers there as opposed to one consumer.
Actually, they're two against four on this panel, two against five, and they're not a union. Yes, they were two against five on this panel.
I heard everybody's views, and I heard everybody's views. So there is a hoteliers union who think a great deal of harm is being done to them. But I think the choice should remain with consumers. Also, a point was made by somebody that if service charge would be reduced or be made optional, then the menu charges would go up and things will remain the same. But I think if consumers really like your food, and even if your charges are more, they will see it and they will have that food and they will tip as per their convenience.
Absolutely.
So if it's not making any difference, what is everybody up in arms about? Somebody just said, Mihir said that it won't make any difference. The food charges will go up. The menu list will go higher. So then what is the problem? If
Finally,
it goes higher and the service charge is either less or the option is left to the tipper, and many years, exactly, so what is the problem?
So
this
what
is the
you're saying
same
is,
thing,
as a consumer,
also for
okay to
many
pay
years,
more.
we did not have service charge.
The problem is that all the sectors should be it should be uniform.
Sir, show some manners.
I'm saying all the sectors. I never said anything. I said all the sectors should be uniform.
Sir, let me finish, sir. Sir, I have not finished. Sir, I want to finish. Sir, I want to finish saying what I'm saying. No, I should be allowed to finish what I'm saying. So my simple point of contention is, it is optional. If you want to make it mandatory, then people will make a choice. And it's the Gazette clearly says that it is an option because there have been many complaints, and person should have a choice if the food is not great or the waiter is rude or the service is poor or food is bad, that I don't have to pay. It should not be mandatory that I pay 15% on something that is terrible. I don't have a problem paying it every time, but maybe I should have a choice as a consumer that 1 out of 10 times, when I really have a problem, I should be able to refuse it.
So example, if you don't like my food, just 1 second.
It never happens
just give me a
anywhere
chance
in the
to
world.
talk. Shazia, what I am saying is
go ahead.
that if you don't like my food, you don't pay for my food? Shazia?
Yeah, it'll take a second. She'll hear.
No, we pay for your food, but
if you don't
we
like
won't
it.
pay the service charge. No, you don't get it, sir. I don't think I think you're short on comprehension. No, sir, you're not understanding what I'm saying. I think it's beyond you. But all I'm saying is, I have a choice to pay the service charge or not as per the service.
No, you just said if you like the food or not.
I have no choice.
So, okay, all right, we
Aditya,
very quickly, I've run out of time. Aditya.
Well, why all this came up?
You're debasing the debate because you have nothing
as
to
Shazia
say.
correctly said, why all this came up is because there have been complaints.
Because you have nothing to say, so you're arguing.
There have been complaints from the consumers to the DCA that the service was not good. There was an unfair practice, and what we are discussing, if at all your practices were right, customers will down to pay 20% even.
All right, there would have been no complaints.
Why government is taking
so here's my
taxes
question.
from you?
I have a question for Romil. Romil, if the government doesn't roll this back, what is the next step that restaurateurs will do? What's the next step?
Well, let's see what happens. Let's see what the government says.
So we are going to the court.
We are, of course, going to court. We're going to take whatever legal recourse we need.
So there is
for us, it's very simple.
There is a judgment which is passed in 2001 and 2008, where same way as the consumer had gone to the consumer court and it's got a stay against this.
So you're going to
Pizza
court
Hut
next.
has won that case.
All right, you're
in
going
Patiala court.
You're going to court next. All right. We have to wrap up this debate here. It's been a very interesting conversation, but it is what it is right now. There is a fair amount of, like Antoine said, and like Rishi said, a fair amount of confusion that's been caused by this. Some clarity would help. What it fundamentally means for you as a customer is that when you walk in, the first thing you should do is ask, is there a service charge? Yeah, or is there, if there isn't, and if you're unhappy paying it, then you have a choice not to pay. Restaurateurs say if you don't want to pay, then you could choose to leave the restaurant. Our contact details are on your screen. Stay with Magicbricks Now. Thanks for watching.
You can watch live TV on our website mpnow.in. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Magicbricks Now. And don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at Magicbricks Now. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/Magicbricks Now.